You can fast, pray, cry, but if these 4 objects are still in your home, the Spirit won't come. You lit the candle. You whispered the name of God like someone desperate for air. You placed your hands together trembling, begging not just for a response, but for a sign. But the room stayed still. No wind, no fire, only the kind of silence that feels personal, cruel, almost like it was meant just for you. And maybe it was, because there are things in your house that heaven never entered. Objects that once seemed sacred, now hollow, given space where the Spirit should have gone. You didn't place them with evil intent. That's not the point. You placed them with love. But not everything we love invites light. I've seen it with my own eyes. Homes dressed in rosaries, statues, candles, yet dead inside. Because not everything that looks Catholic carries Christ. Some homes are too full to be filled again. You wonder why the fire never comes, why you pray with tears but wake up dry, why everyone says the Holy Spirit comes to those who ask, but in your case, He doesn't. Maybe the answer isn't above you. Maybe it's on your shelf. Maybe it's in that drawer you never open. Maybe it's the thing you kissed once, then forgot, but it stayed. There is a rosary hanging behind your bedroom door. You never noticed it, but it notices you. It's light, too light, soulless plastic. The crucifix on it has no weight, no wound. Someone gave it to you at a funeral or a baptism, or maybe you don't remember. It was never blessed. It was mass-produced. No hands prayed over it. No priest breathed over it, and yet you hung it like armor. But it doesn't speak in heaven. It doesn't echo in hell. It is silent because it is empty, a dead object in a living space. And I tell you, when spiritual silence begins with your own hands, the Spirit won't shout over it. There is a picture frame in your hallway, a saint with unfamiliar features. The eyes are wrong, too bright, too large, the face too symmetrical. You didn't notice it until now, but you've avoided praying near it. Not on purpose, you just look away, and maybe that's not you. Maybe that's your soul sensing something. I saw it once, a woman who prayed under a false image for 10 years and wondered why her children could not sleep. Because sometimes an image is not just poorly drawn. Sometimes it carries a spirit of confusion. You thought it was holy, but it never was. And what about the candle you lit last Sunday? You bought it from a shop that sells incense, charms, essential oils. It said, Angel Light. It was pink, sweet-smelling. You thought it was harmless, but fire is loyal. It burns for who made it. And this fire never knew the altar. It never knew the cross. It knew only desire, ritual, attraction. You thought it brought warmth, but it never brought presence. I'll tell you the truth. The enemy doesn't mind you lighting candles, as long as they're not lit for the truth. You own a medal, small, scratched, the Virgin on one side. Maybe Saint Benedict, it's on your keys. You touch it when you're afraid, but never pray with it. It wasn't blessed, it was found, or gifted, or bought in a rush. And now it hangs like a silent promise, made by no one, kept by nothing. You wear it like protection, but it never protected, it just stayed. And I say this gently, the Spirit does not stay where false protection is honored. Before Pentecost comes, you must ask yourself, what have I allowed to stay? What have I called holy that was never His? Because when the wind of God comes, it comes for the emptied. When the fire descends, it searches for places not already burning with counterfeit light. You can still undo it, even now, but not tomorrow, not after church, not when it's convenient. If any part of your body trembled just now, if something you own just flashed in your memory, don't wait. Share this with someone who prays but feels nothing. And if this message touched something buried deep inside you, write "burn the false" in the comments. That phrase is not a slogan. It's a sentence of freedom, a signal to heaven that your house is being made ready, ready for the only presence that truly stays. I watched a man pray once, fervently, with a rosary clutched so tight his knuckles turned white. He asked for healing, he asked for fire, and I saw the Spirit hover, pause, and withdraw. Not because the man was impure, but because what he held in his hand had already been claimed. Not by God, but by something else. Something that entered when no one was looking. Not all entry is dramatic. Sometimes it walks in dressed as devotion. You think because something says holy on the label, it is, but the Spirit doesn't read packaging. He reads essence. He reads what's underneath. Let me tell you something most priests will never say. The enemy has infiltrated the sacred through replication, through mass production, through the counterfeit disguised as comfort. And if the object you trust was never born in blessing, it cannot carry the breath of God. It may carry something else. It may carry silence, weight, fog, and you won't know it until you realize your room has been praying back at you, not with words but with resistance. There is a silence that suffocates. You know the one. The kind where prayer feels like throwing stones into a black well and nothing returns. The kind where even your breathing feels unwelcome in the room. That is not the silence of God. That is the silence of something else, a presence that sets itself between you and heaven by sitting silently in what you thought was sacred. Before I died, I encountered a home where every wall was lined with candles, images, rosaries, medals. It should have felt like heaven's waiting room. But I couldn't breathe. The air was heavy. The Spirit would not enter. Why? Because the owners loved the idea of God, but surrounded themselves with things that mimicked holiness without ever submitting to it. They had built an altar for peace, but invited the opposite. I touched a candle once in a woman's kitchen. It looked beautiful, clean, white, wrapped in lace. But when I held it, I felt the echo of a ritual spoken over it. Not in Latin, not in prayer, but in bargaining. Her niece had bought it from a shop that sold healing spells. The label had a cross, but the wax remembered what it was truly made for. If you think God will share his dwelling with something that carries another name, you misunderstand fire. Fire is jealous. Fire belongs fully or not at all. Some of you wear crosses that never touched a priest's hand. You hang saint images in rooms where sin happens daily. You keep medals in drawers with old talismans from other faiths just in case. This is not honoring God. This is spiritual confusion, a mixture. And where there is mixture, the Holy Spirit waits at the door. He does not enter. I saw a woman once keep a rosary under her pillow every night. It was her grandmother's, or so she thought. One night, she dreamed of something pulling her downward. Dark corridors, no words, just the weight of being watched. When she told me, I asked to see the rosary. It was black. The crucifix had a snake etched so faintly she never noticed. It had not been her grandmother's. It had been purchased from an antique market. It had never been blessed, but for years it had received her breath, her tears, her fear. And now it had her trust. You don't need to burn everything, but you do need to ask the Spirit, truly, reverently, what was never his. And when he answers, don't delay. Remove it. Don't place it in another drawer. Don't pass it to someone else. Don't pray over it and hope it changes. Remove it. The enemy thrives in what we hesitate to let go of. The fire of Pentecost is not gentle. It comes like wind through locked doors. It breaks the silence with language that was buried. But it will not enter where the altar is shared. It will not descend where shadows still have a shelf. That is why I speak now. That is why I warn you, not with fear, but with urgency. I do not say these things to frighten you. I say them because the flame that wants to fill your home cannot sit beside dead fire. You know which objects I speak of. You felt them just now. You remembered them. That one image, that old medal, that candle you've lit without thinking, that rosary that never carried any blessing but was hung like a shield. The shield is cracked, and the enemy knows. But the Spirit also knows, and he is waiting at your door, outside your home, looking for the space you have cleared, not just of sin, but of the imitation of sanctity, of what you thought was protecting you, but only preserved the silence. If even one sentence in this has made your chest tighten, don't dismiss it. That's not tension, that's invitation, that's the beginning of fire. If someone you love has been living with objects that choke the Spirit, send this to them. And if you're ready to clean the room, to empty the shelf, to burn what never belonged in the house of God, say it. Write "ready for fire" in the comments. That declaration alone sends tremors into the invisible. The Spirit is not late, he's just waiting for a house with no counterfeit flame. I once stepped into a home where the walls were lined with saints, dozens of them, statues, portraits, prints. The woman who lived there said she loved the church, said she loved Jesus, but something was wrong. I could feel it before I sat. There was no warmth, no movement in the air, no light in her eyes, just stillness, like a shrine made for a God who never came. She asked me why her prayers had dried up, why her son no longer believed, why her sleep was tormented. I didn't want to hurt her. But truth isn't always gentle. I told her, you filled your house with the image of God, but not with His Spirit. One of her statues, I touched it. It was heavy. I turned it upside down, and inside the base was a folded piece of paper sealed in wax. She had no idea it was there. The statue was a gift from a friend years ago, someone who once practiced rituals she never understood. She thought she had received protection, but what she received was presence, a presence that mimicked reverence but stole peace. Her altar had become a gate, and the Spirit would not descend where the invitation had already been sent elsewhere. You must hear me now. Not everything that looks holy is clean, and not everything in your home came into your life in light. Some things you were given, some things you inherited, some things you bought out of impulse or tradition, but the Spirit doesn't follow intention. He follows truth, and He does not rest where confusion sits. I've walked through bedrooms where people prayed on their knees, but kept statues in the corner they never looked at. Objects that made their children cry without knowing why. I've held chains that bore the cross, but radiated a chill so deep I felt it in my bones. I've smelled the faint scent of ashes in houses with no fire. And I've watched entire families suffer under objects they thought were just decorative. It's not superstition to clean the soul's surroundings. It's reverence. The Spirit is not afraid of darkness, but He will not share space with deception. And deception, in this time, wears robes of devotion. That's the genius of the enemy. He doesn't destroy the altar. He fills it with lookalikes. You may think, but this was blessed. I saw the priest do it, and maybe he did. But blessing is not magic. If the object was made in darkness, its origin remains. If its design carried perversion, if its maker spoke over it with intent unknown to you, then even the sign of the cross cannot cleanse what was never surrendered. You might ask, but Padre, how do I know? Listen, not with your ears, with your spirit. You've already felt it. That unease, that weight in the room, that hesitation to pray in certain corners, that fatigue that comes when you sit near it, that dream that returns when it's close to you. Discernment is not complicated, it's honest. If the Spirit has never moved while it's in the room, if your heart tightens when you look at it, if your child avoids it, if your mind becomes foggy near it, it is not for you. I once warned a man about the crucifix on his wall. He laughed. Padre, that was a gift from a bishop. I said nothing more. 3 months later, he wrote to me. His daughter had been tormented by visions in her room. They had tried therapy, prayers, medicine. Nothing worked. Until one night, he took the crucifix off the wall. On the back, carved faintly, was a symbol he didn't recognize. He burned it, and the dream stopped. Sometimes the enemy enters not through the door, but through the frame we hang above it. That is why I am not whispering now. That is why I speak with weight, because Pentecost is not symbolic, it's spiritual combustion. And the Spirit is coming to fill, to baptize in flame. But He will not descend on altars where ghosts still sit. He will not share the air with imitation. If you want to be visited, clear the room. And I don't mean only physically, I mean spiritually. There is something in you right now that remembers. A drawer you haven't opened in years. A corner you avoid. A gift you accepted out of guilt. A statue from a loved one who never believed. A candle that came with promises. A rosary bought in haste, with no blessing, with no intention except to feel protected. Let me ask you something no one else will. What if your house has been blocking the Spirit, not because of your sins, but because of your silence? What if your silence toward these objects gave them permission? And what if all this time, heaven has been waiting for you, not to pray louder, but to remove what's false? Don't feel shame. That's not why I came. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here to set your house in order before the fire arrives. I don't speak this to everyone. I speak it to you, because if you're hearing this, it means you've already been chosen to feel the wind again. You've already been marked for flame. You're not far, but you must decide what stays and what goes. If your spirit is stirring, don't delay. Share this with someone who has unknowingly carried spiritual weight for years. Someone whose peace collapsed quietly. Someone whose house looks holy, but whose nights are long. And if you feel called to act tonight, write "I clean the altar" in the comments. That phrase is more than a sentence. It is your consent to the Spirit, your signature on the invitation, your reply to a voice that has been waiting outside your door for far too long. There was a man who came to me in silence. He didn't ask for confession. He didn't ask for healing. He just said, "I feel like God is near everyone else, but not me." I didn't answer him right away. I looked at his hands. He was wearing a silver chain tucked beneath his shirt. I asked him to show it. He hesitated, then pulled it out. A medal of St. Michael, heavy, polished. But I felt no light in it, only cold. I asked him where he got it. He said, "At a flea market. I just liked the way it looked." He wasn't wearing a medal. He was wearing silence, a beautiful silence, dressed like faith, but hollow. You must understand, there are objects that do not carry curses, but carry forgetfulness. They make you feel like you're doing something holy, when in fact, you're just circling the edge of heaven, too heavy to lift. They are distractions in disguise. Not all deceptions come to destroy you. Some come to keep you still. I've seen houses where the Spirit tried to move, but something on the wall refused to bow. Something that absorbed the prayers, like dust absorbs light. The people inside cried, begged, worshipped, and still the fire didn't come. They blamed themselves. But the problem wasn't only in their hearts, it was in the room. I tell you this now, the enemy does not always need to enter your soul. Sometimes he just needs to sit quietly on your shelf. Because when the Holy Spirit comes, he comes to consume. He comes like wind and fire, not to decorate your faith, but to rearrange your soul. But how can he burn if your house is soaked in wax that wasn't made for him? How can he move if every corner is occupied by a thing you never questioned, never asked about, never prayed over? I once visited a woman who told me she used to feel God's presence every morning. She said, "But now it's gone. I still pray. I still light the candle, but there's no wind anymore." I asked her, "When did the wind stop?" She said it happened right after her daughter gave her a small statue of an angel, one with wings painted in gold, holding a crystal. She placed it near her altar, thinking it was harmless, beautiful even. I asked her to bring it to me. The moment it touched my hands, I felt resistance. I turned it upside down and scratched the base. Underneath the paint, buried in the molding, was a sigil, hidden, faint. She never saw it, but something else had seen her. Every morning, when she removed it, the silence broke. She told me the wind came back, that her breath felt lighter, that the room had air again. Not because she prayed harder, but because she cleared the space. You see, it's not always about evil. Sometimes it's about interference, clutter, noise in the spirit realm. Things that were never assigned to your house but were accepted anyway, and in accepting them you unknowingly rearrange the atmosphere. Heaven does not force its way in. It waits. It honors your choices, even when they hurt you. And some of you have chosen to keep things for sentimental reasons, objects from people who are no longer here, medals from loved ones who died far from the faith, candles from weddings that were never truly blessed. Pictures passed down that were never questioned. I tell you with love, you cannot honor the memory of a person by keeping what dishonors the spirit. You must choose between memory and presence, between nostalgia and fire. No, Pentecost is not a feeling, it is a visitation. And when the Spirit comes, he does not ask permission. He descends where he is welcomed, where space has been made, where breath has returned to the room. If your home has felt dry, if your altar feels cold, if your faith has become mechanical, it may not be because God has moved away. It may be because something else has taken his seat. You are not the only one. Many have lived with sacred impostors for decades, objects that pose no threat to the eyes but drain the soul. And I say this again, not to frighten you, but to wake you. Because I have seen what happens when people remove what blocks the spirit. I have seen rooms fill with warmth again. I have seen children sleep peacefully after years of torment. I have seen marriages restored when a single object was taken down and burned. It is not superstition, it is sanctification. God is not slow. The Spirit is not missing. The fire has not forgotten you. But your home must echo the yes you keep speaking with your mouth. And that yes requires action. Before Pentecost comes, clean it. I want you to walk your house tonight, slowly, with reverence. Touch every object with your eyes. Ask the Spirit, is this yours? Don't rush the answer. Don't explain things to yourself. Listen, and when the answer comes, obey, without fear, without delay. If you do this, truly, I tell you, you will feel the air change. You will feel the weight lift. You will wake with peace, not panic. The Spirit will come, not just to visit, but to stay. If this has spoken to something you haven't told anyone, share it. Not just the video. Share the urgency. Speak it aloud. Write, I make room for him, in the comments. And when you do, may the walls around you begin to breathe again. May the wind find its way back through the cracks. And may the fire you thought had left descend. Do you feel it now? Not the fear. Leave that behind. Not the guilt. He never asked for that. But the stirring. The breath you didn't know you were holding. The trembling in a part of your soul that hadn't moved in years. That's not emotion. That's recognition. That's the Spirit leaning in, waiting for your yes to be more than a whisper. I told you about the 4 objects, but this was never just about them. It was about you, about the place inside you that forgot how to burn, about the altar you carry in your own chest, cluttered with things you didn't even know were there. Some of you are not just holding cursed objects, you've built your identity around them. The medal from a mother who abandoned you, the image you kissed after sinning, thinking it would erase what you did. The candle you lit out of desperation, not faith. The rosary you touched, not because you believed, but because you were afraid. And still the Spirit waits. I was once called to bless a home after years of pain. The woman who lived there had lost everything, her husband, her health, her hope. She said, I've asked for healing. Padre, I've asked for God, but it's always quiet. I asked her to show me where she prayed. She brought me to a small corner, full of light. But behind the candle, tucked into the corner of the frame, was a single feather, black, stiff. I asked her where it came from. She said, I don't know. I just kept it. It felt safe. Safe. That's how deception works. It doesn't shout, it comforts, it hides inside the things you refuse to question. And it keeps the Spirit just far enough away that you feel almost touched, almost loved, almost healed. But the Spirit didn't die for almost. He comes for fullness, fire, completion. You say you want Pentecost. Then clear the way. I am not speaking from memory. I speak now because the veil is thin, because the fire is near. And because many of you have been called to carry it, but the match won't strike while your hands are still holding what poisons the flame. Do not protect the thing that's blocking your breakthrough. Do not justify it because it came from someone you loved. Do not explain it away because it looks religious. Either it's blessed or it's not. Either it carries heaven or it echoes something else. You don't need to understand everything, but you need to obey. I've walked with souls who died with rooms full of sacred-looking idols and entered eternity with none of them able to speak for them. Not because they were evil, but because they were empty. Do not enter Pentecost with empty faith disguised by full shelves. Now listen closely, because this is the moment you've been brought to. Take the object in your mind, the one that hasn't left you since this began. Hold it, look at it, ask one question, who does this belong to? And if the answer is anything less than the Spirit, you know what to do. You don't need a ritual. You don't need permission. You need fire, actual fire. If it can be burned, burn it. If it must be buried, bury it far. If it must be thrown away, don't delay. And when the object is gone, do not leave the space empty. Fill it with light, with prayer, with the name that the silence has feared all along, Jesus. Say it now, not with your mouth, with your home. Because Pentecost is not just the memory of a descending flame. It is an invitation to become a place where fire stays. Some of you, your house will feel different within hours. The dreams will shift, the air will lift, and for the first time in years, when you pray, He will come, not because you begged louder, but because you made room. This wasn't content, this was a visitation, and now it's your turn to respond. If your heart is burning even slightly, don't smother it, fan it. Write "Come Holy Fire" in the comments. Say it over your room, say it over your bed. Say it where silence used to sleep, and may the Spirit who hovered over chaos, who burned on heads like tongues of glory, who raised the dead and silenced the noise, find no reason to pass over your home, because this time you were ready.